Hi, welcome to day 3. This is day 3 of our 3-day Doodling for Beginners workshop. It's been really exciting to be on here and teaching. I'm really excited about today because I feel that color is the most expansive and creative of all the doodling options out there. And I'm really excited to teach you a few maybe new ways to doodle with color that you haven't thought of before. And hopefully during this process, some new ways will come to you as your own creativity starts to flow. You're going to hear my older cat meowing in the background. That's Baby. I'm not sure what she wants because she's had food, but that's Baby, the 18-year-old cat. All right, so to begin, I want to make sure everyone has colored pencils. Now, I have a pretty extensive set. This is like 120 different shades, right? My fiance got that as a gift for me. But it's okay if you just have the regular set or a few shades. You can work with whatever you got. As long as you got the spectrum of the rainbow, it'll work. I'm going to go through about 6 different techniques, and I'm going to demonstrate 2 of each on my grid. You can just, if you don't have a grid, it's totally fine. You can just make a segment and practice this technique. And there's going to be choices to make because each technique has like lots of options. So you're going to be able to tune in and think, well, what of those choices resonates most with me? What do I want to do right now? So it's all about enjoying the process and allowing your creativity to flow. So we're first going to start with one color. So I just want you to choose the color that just comes to you as like, I really want to like engage with that color right now. Okay? So here's my color. I'm going to use this like violet purple. Okay. What we're going to do with just one color is show contrast by pushing harder for darker and lessing up for lighter, right? And there's a few ways you can show contrast. You can do it with just like a fade look, or you could do it with actual like patterns or 3D kind of options. So what I'm going to do is just kind of trace. If you didn't have a square, you would want to make one or some kind of segment. I'm going to go ahead and trace mine. And I'm going to begin by coloring darker in a corner. Just kind of pushing a good bit. And I'm going to lessen up a little bit on it. And as you do this, you'll notice sometimes it'll look more like standing out. It's not as fluid. So then you'll go back over and you'll kind of like fix it. So this is all about like the process, just kind of seeing what you like, how to do it, how to make, the contrast with just one color. So I'm pushing harder than I did the first time so that I can see the contrast more. And I'll show you just the idea. All right. It's kind of fanning out there. And I'm just going to make it a little even lighter and try to make it look like it's not a fan. But it's okay if it doesn't, right? It's just like whatever. We're doing this for the enjoyment, not for the perfection of how it's going to look. Doodling is just for you and just that relaxing activity to help you ground and center yourself. And maybe you're not as uniform. Like I'm actually, as I'm doing this is what happens with creativity. A few of my color streams want to come out and they want to look like that. So mine's not going to be uniform. It's going to be a little different. Okay, but you can see the contrast with just the one color. So I'm actually going to I think I'm going to half my square because I want to show another technique with just one color. So I'm going to finish off my square, or my triangle actually. And as I do this, I'm going to put a little bit of a darker on the bottom. Maybe curves up, maybe it isn't uniform. So I can show I'm making a swirl design here. Looks like a sleigh. And the one awesome thing about doodling and creativity is it's going to unfold as you go. So when I began this, did I think that I would make it look like that? Nope. Once our body starts engaging with the energies of color and the materials, different things happen. So expect the unexpected when you're doodling. Okay, so there's one design option, kind of the fade and contrast. Now I do have a sharpener. I don't know if you have a sharpener nearby, but you might need one. I like my little electric one. Okay, so now I'm thinking about a pattern. I can do a pattern, make it darker, and then color the outside with something different. So let's think of all the patterns in the world. We've got polka dots, we've got stripes, we've got different lines, squiggles, shapes. So I think I want to do hearts. That just comes to me with this color, like that would be a really great pattern. So I'm going to make my hearts darker. And I'm going to make them all different sizes. And I'm just pushing hard. So this can be therapeutic too. If you've had like a really rough day, you have a lot of like angst in you, coloring hard with colored pencils. Hey, that's a healthy way to get out your anger or that extra energy without harming anyone, right? So I totally recommend coloring hard when you need to. All right, so there are my hearts. Hi, Emily. I'm so glad Emily's here, and Cheryl. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and just color in the background, kind of uniform, lay off the pressure. So maybe if you were really angry and you're processing it, then as you color lightly, that's almost the act of releasing. This is why I call my studio Thriving Heart Studio, because it's not just about the two-dimensional work we're doing. It's the other dimensions of our emotions and our feelings that go into the work. So, like I'm doing right now, practicing laying off, releasing by a lighter shade behind. All right. So there's my design with just using one color. One color. You're able to make a lot of different kind of looks and experiences for yourself. Okay, so we're going to move on to polka dots or shapes and all the options you could do with them. Okay, so if you're going to Google polka dots, you might see like a uniform kind of pattern. We're going to do more of a polka dots gone wild pattern, okay? I want you to think of that right away. Let's be creative in this time. So your polka dots, first, you're going to have to choose colors. And I would recommend now we're going to just do two colors, okay? So maybe I'm going to keep this one since I'm familiar with it. And I'm going to choose a different color. All right. So if polka dots go wild in my world, that would mean that some are on the page, some are off the page. Some are bigger, some are smaller. Some are inside other ones. Some are maybe behind. So my polka dots are going to be super wild and unique. Okay, so here I go. Now, if you want to, you could use a pencil first and draw your design. But if you do this, you're kind of saying, okay, creativity, I'm giving you the reins. All right, so here we go. All right, I got some big ones. I got some smaller ones. I think this needs like a huge one behind it. You can kind of give a 3D look, right? If you're putting things behind other things. And just make your polka dots until you feel complete. And this could be like, you know, the chaos of life. You're kind of representing it through your art. Life feels like this. There's my polka dots gone wild. And then I can choose, you know, am I going to color, which ones go with what color? Maybe I want to put a line through this and half are this color alternating and half are this color. So let me do that so we can see both options. So this will be the blue background. And now I'm just shading around my blue. All right, so there's a back of blue, and the other one I will shade with the pink. And I get super excited when I'm creating something and then a new idea comes to me of how to do it. Like going with that idea is totally like aligning with your intuition, sensing your soul. It's so, I mean, you think it's just art, but it's not. It's really shifting and changing your energy. And then you take that energy with you into every other activities. There's a lot of crossover. All right, so now I'm not gonna do this perfectly just for time restraints. So I've got my one side. So there we go. And now I'm going to just color the bubbles on the one side or the circles. One color. But I think anything that's overlapping needs to be the other color. So for contrast. So I'm gonna make sure any circles on that side get the proper color. I'm just going to do this quickly to not take up too much time. Okay, and my blue. Okay, so there's my polka dots gone wild. See all that contrast in there with just two colors and different shapes and texture and everything. All right, so let's see, what about if we wanted to add more colors? So I want you to add 2 more colors to your mix right now. So we've got the 2 we started with. I'm gonna add a green and a yellow. Okay, now just pick one of these for the background color and now make all the same kind of object or something, but just different colors. So I'm gonna go with squares. So I'm gonna have, let's see, actually they look like diamonds because I turned it sideways. Okay, so I'm making little diamonds kind of randomly with the first color. I think 4 sounds good. Now I'm gonna keep with the shape. Now you could change it up. I mean, you've got that freedom. I'm gonna keep it uniform. And I think I'm gonna stick with 4 diamonds of each of the 3 colors. 1. And my diamonds are little different sizes. Because remember, we're doodling, we're not tracing, so that's perfectly fine. Okay, and I chose the lighter color as my background. So then there's all my diamonds, 3 different shades. And now I'm just going to color the background around. If you do the opposite, where you color the whole thing one color and then want to add something, you might get a different look depending on how the color comes through the second color, which is totally fine too. You might want that. Or as long as you choose a darker color on top, like I could probably go right over these and it's not going to show up too different because they're so dark. The color won't matter whether you do it first or last, as long as it's a light color and a darker. Okay, so here's just, those are our two techniques of doodling, the kind of like the polka dot pattern, but different. All right, now we have 4 colors we chose. I'm going to have you choose 3 colors, and it might be completely different. We're going to do what we call an umbra or a fade. So you're going to have one color fade into the next and then to the next. So I recommend like the colors that you might see in the sky. So for instance, I might choose a purple, a pink, and a blue, because you would naturally see that occurring. Let's do this blue. But you could do anything. You don't have to do colors that seem to go together. Just be aware that as you blend them, they'll make a new unique color. So if you know what color, you know, these are going to make a nice little purplish pink color together. You put another color together, you might get a different one. So we're going to start here. I'm going to make it go down. So from the top to the bottom. And I'm going to start with, let's see, the pink. Okay. So about 1/3 of it is going to be pink, but it's going to be darker at the top. So I'm going to just do it darker. Shade and kind of lay off a little bit. Try to get this motion down when you're doing a fade. Just kind of going. You've got your arm moving. Okay, now I'm going to take, I'll show you that, my pink. Take the purple very lightly to blend it in. Otherwise, I'll just have to go back and do a little bit more blending, but that's okay. And sometimes duller pencils work better on these than sharper, because you'll see more lines if it's sharper, but that's okay too. You know, just live and learn. And sometimes fades aren't perfectly faded, right? So now I'm going a good bit down with the purple. Okay, so I faded my pink into purple, and now I'm going to fade it into blue. So that's going to overlap a little bit on the purple and make a unique kind of violet color. And then it's going to come back down. You could also just do this kind of look with 2 colors. I like using 3, so it's got the extra little color change in it. And if you think about the sky, you might think about whether a sunrise or a sunset has those 3 different colors. How could you represent that in your art? So there's my fade. So we kind of see how this is really, this is a darker color, huh? Right there. So maybe I can make my blue a little darker too, so it doesn't stand out. What I like about colored pencils is you can go back and forth and you can overlap, and there's no like finality to your artwork. It's constantly able to be modified, right? Most of the time. So I just made it a little darker. So there's an umbra fade. And I'm going to do one more umbra fade. Let's see. How about I'm going to do a diagonal. So you can change the direction of your fade. And I'm just going to do 2 colors now. One's going to go into the other color and then come back out. All right. So I'm going to use orange and yellow. So we'll come over to this side. Actually, I'll keep it nearby it. So kind of like in the beginning when I was doing the darker color in the corner, I'm going to do that again. And lighten up a little bit. Then I'm going to go to the opposite corner and do the same look. And lighten up a little. Now, if you're using these kind of colors, the yellows and oranges and reds, they're energizing colors. So they're the kind of colors that like the frequency is going to wake you up, and they're great to use if you're doing a morning practice and you're feeling a little groggy and you want to wake up. If you're already feeling amped up and you're wanting to relax, you want to do more of the blues and purples and pinks. Those are going to calm you just by looking at the color. There's a psychology with how the frequency affects our brains. So this one's an energizing, maybe sunbeam or something going on here. All right, so I have my 2 corners to start with. I'm going to add the yellow, and I'm probably going to add some more orange when I return to it. So if you're homeschooling a child, something you could set up an activity for them with a bunch of squares or whatever and say, decorate each of these differently. Whether you give them some prompts or just say, access your creativity. What do you think? How could you decorate all of them differently? And that would be a really awesome creative exercise for anyone, but especially for a child. You're giving them permission, right, at a very young age to be creative. Tune into your intuition. So now I'm going to add some of the orange into my yellow. Going for the fade look, though I can still see a lot of my lines. Just means my pencils are a little sharper. Oh, there's my kitty cat. Say hi, baby. Should put you down, though. All right, so now I'm just blending. And I also feel like the energy of blending and like recognizing how things work together, how things go together, how everything isn't so black and white and separate. That's the energy when you're doing any kind of fading or blending techniques with colored pencils. That's the energy you can generate for yourself, that you're seeing how things interconnect, work together, serve you, work for your good. So there's my sun energizing blend. All right. If you feel good about that step, we're going to move on to a more defined look, which is stripes. This is the cool thing about stripes. Stripes can activate your logical brain. So if you're in a highly emotional state and you want to kind of shift from that to be more calm and collective and rational, stripes are your go-to. And I'll tell you why. It's because they're very separate. So they can help you separate like things that are interconnecting too much, like we just talked about. Now we can separate. And that kind of boundary, right, can help us relax and get more logical and rational. So there's many ways you can make stripes. I might actually use my pencil for this one. We all know about the uniform stripe pattern and maybe alternating colors. But what if we want to do stripes gone wild, just like our polka dots gone wild, right? So maybe your stripes are curved. They're like squiggles. Maybe they curve into a spiral. It's still a stripe technique, but you're going to expand on it. So I think I'm going to do something like that, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So one of my stripes just kind of goes crazy, and it goes into the middle. And now I'm going to build off my other stripes based on that one. And I do want to make them somewhat uniform. What that means, I'm going to have like a little pivot access point in the middle of my artwork. Now, this was not planned. This is totally just an idea that comes to me, but you'll see how cool that is. Okay. All right, there's my stripe design. Ooh, Emily says green and orange blend interestingly. See, you learn things that you'll never know before, and then you might decide like, yeah, that color is really appeasing to my eyes, or no, that color looks like baby poop, right? And then you decide whether you want to do that again or not. So for the stripes, I'm going to use all different colors. I'm not going to do any kind of necessarily pattern, though a pattern might be very soothing. Patterns and repetition can be very soothing. So you could do a 3-color pattern and try to repeat. I'm going to just do multicolored, use some ones I haven't used yet here. Now, as I'm making these stripes, I could actually do a fade technique in each of them, right? So I can combine. So at my focal point, I'm actually going to make it a little darker and then just a little lighter. But that's the only real technique I'm going to add to these. So nothing too complicated. But you might want to just make your stripes, you know, uniform, maybe follow a pattern, whatever feels good to you. You're like, that's the stripe pattern that wants to come through me today. So I'm just going to do this. Not necessarily follow the rainbow, but you could. You know, you could do anything like a color scheme like that. That might come to you. So far, here are just my first 3 stripes colored in. Yes, baby, I know. I'm not paying attention to you. And I'm going to go up a little. Come off. Might have to turn your paper while you're doing your art. Most of the time our hand likes to move like in a downward motion towards your body. So kind of adjust yourself so that it's always comfortable when you're creating. And also with that in mind, draw the kind of things, the sizes that appeal to you. If you find like you made your stripes really, really tiny and it's like tedious or it's like hurting your eyes, you know, I need glasses now as I get older. You know, readjust, make yourself some bigger stripes, like totally adjust for yourself and your sensory system. Liam and I will be making some colorful options later for some greeting cards for birthdays this month. And I'll definitely accommodate him without super, super small lines or stripes. Right. I might not color all of these just so we have enough time. I'm going to color one more with the darker center. And the thing about stripes, this thing about being more logical, kind of separating yourself from the situation or the thoughts that might be troubling you. I also like to see it as these could represent people. All these lines could be different people in their life, in your life, and the way that you interact and care for them. It's all different, right? It's not uniquely, you know, always the same. It's very unique. So you can actually appreciate everyone in your life and the lessons they teach you as you're making this design. All right, so I'm just going to color a few of mine and show you like that. So I would just keep going and make a stripe design. And remember, this is like you're just doodling and you think about, what do I want to make today? What am I feeling? What maybe aligns best? And you're like, you know what? I'm struggling a little bit with my emotions. Let's do some stripes, right? Or I feel like things are really interconnected. I want to reinforce that. I'm going to do some blending. You know, there's lots of different things that might make you choose one option over another. Okay, so we did stripes. All right, now the idea is any color plus a black design, right? These are the ones we did yesterday, all these different designs. So I actually just have a black, I believe, pencil. Oh yeah, it's in here. So you don't have to use a marker. You can actually just use the black for the contrast. You could also use a gray. If you don't want a super, super contrast, you want more of like a lighter, subtle look, you could use gray. So I'm going to choose 2 of these. Let's see. Black and green. Okay. And then I'm going to choose one of my patterns that I did yesterday. So maybe I'm going to do my Morse code pattern. So that means probably easiest if I just shade the whole thing green and then add my pattern. So that's what I will do. A quick shade. So kind of like yesterday, the energy behind this pattern is one of appreciating contrast. But instead of just black and white, you're adding that color component to it. So it's a little bit more open and wide. So maybe as I do green, I think about nature. And I'm like thankful for all the contrasts of nature, the seasons I get to experience. The sunny days, the warm days, the rainy days. I think I'd be really bored if my experiences in nature were always the same. So I just kind of like outlined that a little bit, just naturally. It was kind of coming through. And now I'm going to make my Morse code look, which is just lines and circles, random kind of things. If I was really motivated, I could look up the word for nature and do NAT, down or something. And there I am representing a word in my art with a pattern. I think that's pretty cool too. So I'll do 2 lines here and then you can kind of see me what I'm doing. So I don't know if you picked a pattern from yesterday that we did. If you were with us, you can share what pattern you're doing if you've picked one. We had so many options. I'm going to show them again to you some of the options. So I might do a few different options. So, okay, Emily's doing leaves. I'm going to do some leaves too, Emily. But now my leaves are just going to be outlined in black. So here's some leaves, just black and the green. Now, as you're doing this, you might be like, I could add a little different colored green. I've got a darker one to those leaves and make it look a little bit like real leaves. Like, why not? If your doodling starts to take on more specific look, to be more like images and art, yay, that's what it's supposed to kind of do. Make you comfortable enough so that you create, right? Without the expectation that you're creating when you start doodling. See, it's very tricky. Doodling just gets you in and then all of a sudden you're creating some specific masterpiece. All right, so now I took Emily's idea for leaves and I put just the little veins inside of them. So there we go. I didn't put all the branching out veins because it's so tiny, but just the main middle one. I'm going to do one more of the black patterns in that one that I can just add the black on. How about the, let's see, the leopard. I like the leopard segments. And it's really cool. Like, say you're just having a friend over and you guys sit around and talk a lot and you'd like to change up the activity so you're not just maybe sitting having coffee talking. Be like, hey, let's doodle together while we talk. And you like just get into that energy with a friend. Think about how that might shift the energy for you or for your friend. Open up possibilities. Or maybe your partner and you. You know? Date night doesn't always have to be out, right? It could be something you do at home. Like, let's make some really cool doodle art together. A lot of people are like, I don't have time to doodle or whatever because our life can get so busy with responsibilities. But then we lose touch with that inner child in us that just wants to play and create. And if you don't have space in your life for creativity, then you're probably never going to be able to change the situations in your life that do feel overwhelming, because a lot of time they take a creative approach to be like, you kind of get a routine or something going. To break that, it might take creativity. So look at your doodling time as really holistic. Like, this is helping you access tools for life, not just pass time. It's whatever you make it. So it can just pass time, or it could have a whole new meaning and level to you. I'm going to finish up my leopard. So if you chose just one color, maybe you chose a blue, a calming color, or you chose a red or whatever, then as you're focusing on this kind of activity, that's a color that's kind of speaking the most to you. It's not going to be the black. The black is kind of muting that color a little bit, but bringing it out to you. So this would be like the green, really speaking to me, helping me connect with nature. Okay. All right, so the last thing I thought I'd do is, since we're talking about nature, how interesting, I thought we could try to shade a few rocks together. Like, what would a rock look like shaded? So I'm going to choose, hopefully I have a brown. Well, I'll find a brown. A gray and a brown. And maybe some black, because there could be shadow. Hi, Liam. So I'm going to make a rock and then shade it. Okay, so you can try that with me if you'd like. Big, giant rock. We have these really huge rocks that you can climb here in Wisconsin. So there's my rock shape. Hi, see what we're doing? We're shading. That's just music playing. What do you think, Liam, about my rock? I'm going to start with a little bit of gray. So rocks are going to be kind of blended, but they're going to have things that stand out too. So I'm just going to kind of color fast on my rock, and then take the brown and color in some of the segments. Okay, so here's a mixture. My rock there is a mixture of my colors. And now I'm going to put some shadow elements, which means it's like little, what would you say, little areas that are jutting out. We can make a little depth with it. It's the areas behind. And it gets bigger as I come towards the front, a little bit of depth. So there's a rock. I'm going to return to some brown on it. And just as you're, imagining maybe the rocks you've seen, you can kind of imagine the shading that you might need. It's all in there. Like, you've been in nature before and you probably know the color combinations. It just takes starting and they start coming back to you. So I'm going to make sure I make my rock look like it's got a little edge here. So it's not a perfect line. Kind of more 3D coming through. All right. Be a little less careful. Okay, so there's just a rock. Kind of put some different shades in there and a little bit of depth and things like that, right? So now, how about, there's a little bit of sky here, but how about we make a sky with clouds? So all you're gonna do is make like areas that are gonna be white. So I'm gonna use the blue. To kind of outline my clouds. And then I might choose 2 different colors to fade into. Hey, Liam, why don't you come sit and finish this with me? We're gonna do some colorful stuff later. So maybe your sky has some of those purples that we practiced, right? So here's taking the doodling and making it, taking the color and the doodling and making it into an actual scene that you might see. So now my purple, I got a really light purple. I'm gonna actually just blend this over top, almost my whole sky. So it's not just a fade, but it's almost the whole thing. Okay, so you can see there's a sky, blended 2 colors. And then maybe below is an ocean, right? So here's my different blues. Let's see, I might need a blue that is more turquoise. I'm sure I have one in here. Or more green, like these might be more oceany. We'll see. So I'm just gonna make it look like water by making a few waves back and forth, a little bit of darker. Here's where we're using the contrast technique that we started. And then a few different colors that are mixing because the ocean looks different when you look at it. So think about what your ocean might look like if you're making one with me, and the relaxing, calming rhythm of an ocean under a beautiful sky. That could kind of be your meditation when you start to make more specifics. I'm just gonna finish this up here. All right, nothing too fancy, just a quick demonstration of how you could make a sky and ocean just with some of those techniques that we practiced. Okay, so the idea is kind of learn the technique and then see how you could incorporate it into a drawing if you want to. If you want to just stay with it as the relaxing doodling technique, then do that, right? Don't feel like you have to expand into that immediately. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this workshop. I have had a blast, and I'm looking forward to leading the next one, which will be in November. I'm not quite sure what we'll be covering, but it'll be really cool. So thanks for joining, and you guys have a great weekend.